Welcome. I am super excited for today's session. We have a very, very special guest. We have the GOAT of digital marketing, Ryan Deiss, founder of Digital Marketer, Traffic Conversion Summit, and now the Scalable company. I am a longtime fan and student of Ryan's, and so this is a big honor for me. And I know as followers of the Seven Figure Agency, you're going to get lots of great insights from what Ryan has to share. So without further ado, Ryan, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I guess let's start off, Ryan, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about kind of what inspired you to create the Scalable company.
So as you know, I've been doing marketing. I mean, I made my first sale online in 1999, back when Google was a science fair project. So I've been a marketer and have identified as a marketer for 20 years. But as a marketer, I was also doing marketing for my own businesses. So yes, I would talk about marketing and I would teach marketing, but I was an entrepreneur and I was building companies. And the thing that I realized is that as we did marketing and as the marketing that we did worked, it created new problems. Instead of having problems of growth, we had problems of scale. And what I found is that more growth isn't always a good thing. I mean, back in 2016, I had 3 different companies simultaneously on the Inc. 500 and 5,000 lists. And within 24 months, 2 of those companies were basically dead, right? And in both cases, it wasn't because the businesses failed because just the market went away or the product didn't work. In both cases, they failed because they didn't know how to scale. They didn't understand how to really go from that next level. And in one case, business grew itself into oblivion. So I was dealing with new issues and new challenges, and I wanted to talk about those issues and challenges because I knew other entrepreneurs were facing them. And so that's why we decided we need to launch another company to help that next level, that next stage of entrepreneur.
So good. And I've already read through Get Scalable, an amazing book. Everybody should get a copy of this. And I'm so excited to ask some questions and get some feedback for you, specifically on how to apply this to the digital marketing agency space. Yeah. So if you're watching this live or on the recording, be sure to get a copy. Ryan has not just the book, but some amazing resources at getscalable.com/free. Is that the best place to send them, Ryan?
Yeah, that's where you can actually get the book for free. Literally, we went into our shipping thing to find out how much does it actually cost to ship this. And I think it was $8.20 is the act. So we didn't upcharge or anything like that. We're eating the cost of the book and the packaging. It's basically just the cost of shipping. My goal is to get that in the hands of 10,000 entrepreneurs this year. And so I'm willing to give it away to do it because I'm just passionate about helping those founders who are kind of trapped in that messy middle, including agency owners, which you asked how it applies to them. Man, agency owners are, with all due respect, the worst when it comes to some of these issues and challenges. They deal with because you are the product, right? I mean, you are, and you have to do everything. If you think about what business is, every business does 3 things. We make stuff, we sell the stuff we make, we fulfill the stuff we sold, right? And in a service business, the making of it is really learning how to do the voodoo that you do. So as an agency owner, whether you're more on the SEO or the social or the content or the paid ads, you're constantly having to learn and innovate how to do what you do. So that's the making of it. And you're productizing your services and creating the systems and the procedure that. You're doing that. And then you got to sell it, right? And that requires a whole lot of marketing, which is a little bit like the making. And then you got to fulfill it, which also looks like marketing. And so everything just gets blended together and you wind up as an agency owner doing literally everything. And that's when you're max trapped. You are maximum trapped in your business. It's when we start to resent our businesses. I've known many agency owners. I'm sure that this is why a lot of folks come to you where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's been fun. It's been what I signed up for. And so, yeah, this absolutely applies. And we love helping agencies with this stuff because they're my peeps.
I love it. Yeah, I think we all start to make more money and have more freedom, right? And really, once you've got 10, 15, 20 clients on retainer, the freedom becomes a challenge unless you learn what Ryan's teaching here, which is how to scale, how to put the systems, the procedure, and the team in place so you don't have to do it all yourself. And so knowing that you work with a lot of agencies and you've got a lot of context on this, what do you think some of the biggest mistakes you see agencies make when it comes to scaling their operations?
They don't get out of either the getting of the clients or the fulfilling of the clients. And so anytime we're working really with any service-based professional, and so, I mean, I was literally having a conversation with one of our clients who's an attorney, and I was asking her, I said, okay, you learned how to do the stuff you're doing back in law school. You got that figured out. Your day job right now is getting clients and fulfilling clients. So I want you to pick which of those two, what's the one that you're going to still hold, that you're still going to continue to do? What's the one that you're going to like? And she's like, oh, I can't. I need to do both of them. And I hear this from agency owners as well. They're like, nobody is as good at marketing, my services as I am. I need to be out there on stages and podcasts. I'm the face of the company. I need to be doing that. And then, the clients, they want to hear from me when we're doing the sale. And then because I sold them, they expect me to be the one that is going to onboard them and that's going to actually kind of do the work and, do the monthly and the quarterly reviews. And so I can't give any of it up. It's like, okay, well then I guess you're just trapped. I guess you're just screwed. No, that can't be the case, right? And the reality is our clients don't expect that. So I always say to them, pick. And I honestly don't really care which one they pick, but you should start with one of them. What is the one that you've decided that you can release? My advice, my encouragement for most agency owners would be to release the fulfillment side. So let's divide the business up in two. You've got the sales and the marketing. You got let's call that growth.
Landing clients.
You got the getting of the clients, right? And then the other side is the fulfilling of the clients. And typically what we do is we work to get the clients. And then we go, holy crap, now I need to do something. And then, you start to see your pipeline go down. And so, we're going to go and try to get more clients. But then the clients we have are angry because we're not serving them. And we're just caught in this plate spinning mode. You've got to get out of that vicious cycle by saying, I am going to systemize and I'm going to automate one of them. So step number one is to figure out which of those one is it going to be. I recommend that it be the fulfillment, because that is the one that doesn't make the cash register ring. I would say as close to the cash and as close to the money as you can. So, so that's step one. Now, step two is you really need to document, okay, how do we do the fulfillment? And the biggest mistake, you ask, what's the mistake that agency owners make? And there's a couple of big ones. The first big mistake that they make is they say, well, I guess I just need to hire somebody to manage all the fulfillment. And so they hire an operations manager, a COO, an integrator, and they go, okay, human being, figure out how to take care of all these clients. Well, the person doesn't really know what they're doing. They certainly don't know all of your ways. And they try, but ultimately they fail. And they cost a lot of money while they were doing that. And they lost you some really valuable clients. And now you got to fire them and start all over again and declare, well, nobody can do it as well as me. I don't know if anybody has gone through that, but that's the first big mistake is we hire people. I had to write this down. Good people don't fix broken systems. Broken systems break good people. And I just see it time and time again. And if you found that you've hired for the same role again and again and again, and different people keep failing again and again and again, it's a good chance it's not a people problem. And so we've all heard that it's who, not how. Well, that's true, but it's one of those fortune cookie statements that is true in the general, but doesn't always work in the practical. So that's the first mistake, is we just throw humans at it. Then we say, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to document everything. I need to McDonaldize this thing. We need to have a process for every little thing that we do, and we need to create all these checklists. And that doesn't work either. And the reason it doesn't work either is because it takes so long to document literally everything that you do that you never really get it done. You wind up stopping halfway through because you got to actually do the work. If you have a team, they're pissed off and frustrated that you're making them do all this documentation. And then even when you do have it, because people just have these little checklists, they don't have the full context, they don't even use them, right? And so we got all these checklists that nobody's looking at or using. And so, so that doesn't work either. So here's what you need to do. Don't just hire a human and throw them at it, and don't document everything. I want you to take a step back, and I want you to say, okay, we just got a client. A client is sold. What's the very first thing that's going to happen? And I want you to get a stack here. I always have them near me. I want you to get a stack of Post-it notes, stack of sticky notes, and I want you to go to a whiteboard. And I want you to write on one of them, close sale, client one, whatever you did. And I want you to put that in the upper left-hand corner of your whiteboard. Cool, we got that. Now, when are you going to consider a client to be fulfilled? Right? When is the fulfillment done? Now, hopefully, as an agency owner, the answer is never.
Right. Until they cancel, right? Until they turn in their notice.
Yeah, and this is why some people will be like, oh, I can't document our process because hopefully we're never done with them. But what I would say is there needs to be a point where you're going to consider the client to be onboarded. Right. And I would always say, what is the point at which you're going to ask for a testimonial and ask for a customer story? Because you're not going to, unless you're just a delusional narcissist, right? You're not going to ask for a testimonial or a customer story until you know you've delivered adequate value. So the beginning is a sale was made. The end is we're going to ask for a testimonial or a customer story. You got the beginning and you've got the end. Now what I want you to do is go back to the beginning and say, okay, a sale is made. Then what happens? And I want you to write down, okay, well, we're going to schedule an onboarding call. Great, onboarding call scheduled. Then what happens? Okay, well, we're going to hold the onboarding call. Great, then what happens? Well, we're going to gather all this information. Okay, then what happens? Well, it depends. If we didn't get the information, okay. When you hear an it depends, now we're going to turn the square into a diamond. And we're going to say, well, if this happened, if it's a yes, then they're going to go here and we'll track that one. If it's a no, we'll follow this one. All we're doing is creating process maps. As agency, you've done this when you've mapped out funnels and things like that. We all know in general how to build these business process maps, but I want you to do that. And if you will do that and you will visualize what you do when a client happens, you will have what we call your fulfillment engine. You will have mapped the client fulfillment process. Then you can go back and you can say for each one of these little sticky notes, what are the stages that really matter? What are the stages we really don't want to screw up? Okay, you can build processes for those. Who's responsible for all these? If it's you in every box, now you know who you need to hire to begin to give those things up, right? How do we know it's working? Now you can ask, what are the metrics we need to go? And you can build your scorecards that way. Just that high level visual map is the one thing that nobody does that makes all the difference in the world. So that's where I would start. Once you've done it for your fulfillment engine, then you can flip over and do it for your growth engine. Now you can ultimately hire somebody to manage that entire process, because you can say, this is the process that you own. From this point to this point, all the steps in between, figure out the process, figure out the people, go.
I love it. I love it. And I love the simplicity of the napkin math and the Post-it notes. Give us a yes in the comments if that makes sense. You're clear on what he's talking about here. Like you said, Ryan, I think a lot of people overcomplicate this, right? They're like, oh, we need SOPs for everything. We need all these different playbooks. And you wind up getting into the details and the weeds. I think one of the key insights and one of the key things I really love about this scalable framework that you've built is prioritization on what really matters. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you prioritize those value engines and why that's so important?
Sure. So I'm a big believer, the first value engine, which is what we call them, that you should map, is your fulfillment engine. Map what you do when you have a client, because ultimately our job is to produce successful clients, not just happy, successful ones. So what must be true to do that? We're going to map that. The next question you need to ask is, okay, well, how do clients happen? And so then you can map that one. That's your growth engine. When you have a growth engine and you have a fulfillment engine, you now have the entirety of your client journey, of your customer journey visualized, right? From the point of awareness to they're so happy that they gave us a raving testimonial, and maybe they're even going to start referring. You have that mapped visually in flowchart form. Then go back to those go back to your growth engine, your fulfillment. Again, what we broadly call a value engine, because it visualizes how you create value. Look at each one of those little sticky notes and say, which are the ones that we just truly cannot screw up? What are the ones that are very high stakes, but also high potential for human error? So somebody filling out a form, right? That could be visualized on a step or stage, right? They visualize, maybe you got an onboarding form when somebody comes through, you need to send it, but the reality is it's automated. So you don't need to document how you created the form or it's done, you got it. But now that initial client onboarding session, that's the make or break moment. You don't want to screw that up. And especially if you're not going to be the one that does it every time, you better make sure that is very clearly documented in a step-by-step playbook. With first, you're going to ask this question, then you're going to ask this one, then you're going to say this, then you're going to do this. in the steps and stages, this again, as represented by the little sticky notes, that you want to make sure this is high stakes, high potential for human error. That's what you build playbooks for. That's what you build SOPs for, which, by the way, those two terms I use interchangeably.
Right. The term for it is a playbook in the book, but it's an SOP. It's a standard operating procedure. It's how you do what it is that needs to get done.
Yep. And the key is, in most of the businesses that we run that are doing, low to mid 8 figures, there's like a dozen playbooks. You don't have to document everything. So I'll tell you a quick story. Have you read the book, the E-Myth?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like required reading for every entrepreneur. I think it's a great book. I really do. If you haven't read the E-Myth, the basic idea is you need to essentially treat your business like a franchise, McDonaldize it, document everything, and then you can kind of step away. All right. So great, good concept. I, like a lot of entrepreneurs though, took that to the extreme. And so I read the book. I remember I was on vacation. I read the book. And I came back from vacation and I did what a lot of entrepreneurs did. I'm hyped up. I'm motivated. And it could be like, because you read a book or because you went to a conference. I bet your members do this when they come back from your meetings. They get all jazzed up about a new idea. So they call a company meeting and they're like, okay, everybody. And I did this. I called an all hands meeting, like trumpets blaring. I have an announcement to make. Effective immediately. I'm not going to greenlight any new projects. We're not going to make any new hires. We're not going to do anything new until everybody in the company has documented everything that they did. And again, there was total panic and rage. Panic from the people who assumed they were getting fired. Rage from the people who knew that their job was secure, but they were frustrated that we were making them document what they already knew to be true. Now, I didn't set it up well. I explained the why, wanted to help them get more efficient. Eventually I got buy-in and we did it. But we basically shut the company down for a month. And when we were done, I had it. I had the binders filled with every checklist and every SOP for everything that everybody did. And man, it was binders and tabs separated for all the different departments and all these things. And I remember putting them on the bookshelf and being so proud, and literally no one looked at them. I found them when we changed offices after COVID, covered in dust. I'm not exaggerating. And I'll tell you, the very first playbook, the very first SOP that was turned in was the process for requesting paid time off. Now, I love our people. I want them to take vacation. But does our people, number one, they all knew how to request time off. This was not something that everybody knew how to do it. But did that fundamentally drive value in the company? Did it get us new clients? Did it serve the clients we had? Did it afford us the ability to innovate on what? No, it didn't. And yet that was the first one we did. And so when people say you need to document everything, I say, no, you don't. Map your value engine, map your growth and your fulfillment, and say, which of these sticky notes, high stakes, high chance for human error, do only those. In most of the companies, like I said, it's about a dozen. And when you only have a dozen, guess what? People use them. When you only have a dozen, people take them seriously. And so I'm a big believer in less is more when it comes to documentation.
I love that. I think that was one of the things that really resonated with me as I read the book was that's where most of us get stuck. Like we just want to overcomplicate it. And, all of the books from, there's a dozen books on this, right? That say you need to put the systems, the procedures in place. And so we think, okay, there's a million things we need to document. And we waste all this time and all this energy for something that actually detracts from the focused things we actually need to do. And so let's talk a little bit about power stages and the concept of prioritizing the most important aspects in the value engines.
Yeah, so that's what those are. Like those power stages, those are the
onboarding, the fulfillment.
Yeah, and the power stages specifically are those high stakes, high chance for human error that you don't want to screw up. So we build playbooks for power stages. And we call them power stages because we want everybody to know that these are the powerful things that we got to get right. We want to elevate and we want to acknowledge that, look, some of the steps within this process are, yes, more important than others. They're the ones that we absolutely positively must get right. If we don't get this part right, then we're going to screw it up. And so when we elevate these stages, and as a power stage, Then we can say things like, okay, everybody agrees this is clearly a power stage, which, by the way, that's why visualizing the value engines and showing it to your team. Hey, everybody, good news. This is how clients happen. This is what we do with a client once we have them. Just that's going to give them tremendous clarity. Okay, team, what are the steps and stages in here that we absolutely positively cannot screw up but have a high chance for human error? What are our power stages? We get agreement within the organization on what those are, and we go, amazing. So this stage over here, this sticky note, that's a power stage. Who is uniquely accountable and responsible for that? Nancy is. Nancy, amazing. I knew I liked you. Here's what I need you to do. The next time that you do this, execute on this, I need you to document it while you're doing it. You could fire up Loom and record yourself doing it. Ask somebody to be next to you. If it's a client conversation, you're not comfortable recording it, have somebody there who they're documenting it. Have a hidden camera. Like, I don't care, but the next time you do this, will you document it because it's so important? Now, Nancy feels honored and privileged to get to document it because we've acknowledged and have elevated the stage as a power stage. And as such, her role as well. And so if you get agreement on this is how stuff happens, if you get agreement on the ones that are the most critical, then it's an honor to do the documentation and people are excited to do the documentation. So that's why we elevate power stages and only document those initially.
I love it. I think, it just kind of takes a lot of pressure off in the organization feeling like you have to figure it all out. If you're watching, give us a yes if that makes sense. Kind of like, look, let's, even in a large organization, like you said, an 8-figure business, we're talking about 12 key processes in the business that actually move the needle, that are worth the time, the attention, and the energy to really map all of the way out.
Yeah, we have a rule, do then document. And so we're not going to document an abstract. We're not going to say, what do we think is the case? We're going to do it and document what we did. We're going to do it again based on that documentation to see if it produces predictable results. We're going to have somebody who doesn't have the full context do it, field test it. Only then do we declare this playbook created.
So good. So if you could, you shared a lot of good insights in the book on this, but what are your thought process around developing that playbook library, AKA SOPs? What's the best way to map that out and actually develop those playbooks?
So the first thing is that it does need to be in a digital area. So printing these things out and putting them in a binder, even if you're an in-house team, because we were at the time, like now we're fully remote, but at the time we had 70, 80 people all under one roof. Anybody at any point in time could have walked over to that bookshelf, grabbed it off the thing, made a photocopy of the playbook that only nobody ever did, right? So it needs to be in a digital place. Now there are tools out there. Trainual is a great tool, is a great solution for this. Guru is another one. There's tools galore. Notion, if you want to have something that's a little bit more flexible. The tool isn't really the thing that matters. The key is that just everybody needs to know where it is, and it needs to be in an obvious place. For most of our companies, we use Google Sheets. And so we will have just a Google Sheet that will list off the critical playbooks by, for the growth and for fulfillment. That'll list off the critical playbooks. Every playbook must have a name. It's essential to have a name. When it's a name, it's a thing, right? There should be a description next to it. And this is big. Every playbook gets an owner. Even if multiple people are going to be utilizing this playbook, one person needs to be the playbook owner. They're typically the person who created the playbook, and they're the person who ensures the playbook is up to date. The other thing that every playbook needs to have on it is a date when it was last updated or its created date. And underneath that date, there should be a note that says, important, if the last updated date is older than 90 days, please contact the playbook owner to make sure that it is still up to date. That is how you, without needing to get into and again, a lot of the tools that I mentioned, you can set timers for when playbooks need to be updated. But if you're just using Google Sheets that link off to Google Docs, you don't have that functionality built in. So we just automate it through humans. And trust me, those playbook owners start getting some pings from some people, they're going to update the dang playbook and take a look at it and make sure, yep, that's relevant. I like for a playbook to have a video walkthrough and then just a very simple step-by-step of here's what you do. Both of them is nice because some people like to kind of watch and do it. Some people like having the check by that step-by-step. But if it's digital, if every playbook has an owner, and if every playbook gets updated every 90 days so it doesn't gather digital dust, it will actually get used. The other rule that we have, and I learned this from my buddy Dan Martell, and I think you know as well, we have an always open policy. So if you're executing one of those power stages, you need to have that playbook open and visible somewhere on your computer or on your desk while you're doing it. It's the same thing, as the pre-flight checklist that pilots go through. They've flown this plane 100 times. They're going to pull out that checklist and they're going to go through and they're going to check it off. It's just, if it's that critical, it's that important.
Love it. I love the idea of keeping it in the Google Sheets and Google Docs, a million tools, but the benefit of having it in a system you've already got and a tool that your team already knows how to modify in. You want them to be able to easily get in, get out, make the updates and the modifications rather than learning a new platform and creating more complexity in the process.
And that's the key. Whatever tool they're already using, put it there. So if you use ClickUp, put it there. If you use Monday, put it there. Like, this gets really difficult to do, by the way, if you have hundreds of playbooks, but you shouldn't have hundreds of playbooks, right? If you got a dozen or so, you can put it anywhere and then it'll actually get used.
So good. And, I think this is a true operating system for running a business, right? Everything from how to build the systems and the procedures to managing the team and the accountability chart. I know a lot of agencies have studied a lot of the different methodologies, but the common one right now is EOS. Would love your thoughts on how this differentiates from the entrepreneur operating system.
Yeah, I think EOS is great. I've got a lot of respect for the traction and for all that they've done. I think a lot of the ideas in it are dead on. What distinguishes our process is EOS, and this is the way with a lot of different business growth type books and methodologies, is they all start from I want you to set a goal. What's your goal? What do you, or I would argue even worse, what's your big mission? What's your big vision? Yeah. Let's play entrepreneurial arts and crafts for a little bit, right? Like, make a vision board. Like, what's your whole thing? I'm like, God dang it. Like, there's a place for it, but it's not step one. Okay. And this is the difference. Every place says, okay, let's start from your goal. Let's start with a 10-year goal. Now let's break that into, a 5-year and then 1 year. And then let's break that into monthly kind of stuff. And it's like, bleh. And now let's have a meeting rhythm that's going to show. And I've just never really seen it work, because starting from this is what I want to be true to these are the things that we should do. It's not usually how business and life works. Here's where we start. We start from, how do you create value? Like, why do you exist? I get that you got your goals. We'll talk about those later. Let's talk about your clients for right now. Why are they happy that you exist? And then how do you get more of them? How do you capture and create marketplace value? And the answer to that question is found in your growth engine. This is how we capture marketplace value. And your fulfillment engine. This is how we deliver the value. So that's where we start. We start with a company's value creation process, and we build an operating system around that. This is how you do what you do. This is the specifics of how you do it. This is who you need to do this. Now we can get into, okay, what are the metrics that we need to track? Then we can get into how often should we meet to discuss these metrics. Then we can get into, okay, then what are our goals? In light of we know how we deliver value. We know we have the ability to deliver this value because we've addressed the people and the process side of things. Now, what do we want to achieve? And let's work backwards from that. So we really do start from the company and build an operating system around it. Goal setting is important. So is vision. So is values, all that. But we do that last. That's last. And the meeting rhythm and all that does come into play. But God dang it, just a meeting rhythm does not an operating system make. It's just not,
I love it. And I think the light bulb moment for me was just, I'm a big fan of EOS, but just getting clear on what those key value engines are and understanding how to make it in a simple flow chart. That way the entire company, the entire organization can see, all right, we can take a deep breath because these are the key things we actually need to get dialed in, that we need to focus on and really focus on optimizing that. And while some of those other systems talk about it, you really get straight to the meat and potatoes of how do we map that out visually, get everybody on board with it, and then how do we create the playbooks around those most important activities in the business, and then how do we create the scorecards and the metrics which I truly believe is a game changer. And it's just simplicity scales, complexity fails.
Yeah. I mean, and that everything that I talk about in the book and everything that I teach now is really in pursuit of that. It's in pursuit of simplicity, because man, I've tried complex. You know, with that we took a company from $500,000 to $3 million to $30 million, year over year, and it crashed and burned because it grew too fast. And so you need to understand, as businesses grow, especially service-based businesses, you need to flee to simplicity, not complexity.
So good, so good. So you mentioned scorecards, and would love to kind of talk through how you see scorecards and how they play into scaling a business.
Sure. So I'll tell you how not to do it, which is how just about everybody does it. What everybody does is they go out to their teams and they say, okay, people, what are the metrics that you think that we should be tracking? And everybody kind of throws out some departmental scorecards, and that's that. And you're going to get a lot of vanity metrics, and nothing's going to be particularly connected. And you're going to be looking at all these numbers in the abstract, and you don't really know what they mean. And so people just stop looking at them. So that's not what we do. Again, we go back to our value engines and we say, okay, this is our growth engine. This is how customers happen. This is how clients happen. Let's go back to that very first sticky note. And on a growth engine, maybe it's we run Facebook and Instagram ads. Maybe it's I want to appear on X number of podcasts. But it's, those early sticky notes are going to be how you generate awareness. So you're going to look at those and you're going to say, okay, let's take this sticky note up here. How do we know this one's working? What are the metrics we should look at to know this one's working? And you'll write down and it'll become obvious. When you look at it, you're like, oh, well, if we're doing meta ads, how much, what's our spend? What is our average cost per click? It becomes fairly obvious. Let's say again, you got a podcast strategy. How many podcasts did I appear on? How many outreach have I done? It just becomes very obvious. All right, let's move on. Where are we send, once we do these, we're going to send them to this landing page to go and get some lead magnet or something like that. How do we know this one's working? Well, what were the total number of unique visitors to this page? What was the conversion rate? Okay, got it. If you go sticky note by sticky note and you start at the top of again, we just use Google Sheets for this. We don't have fancy tools. We start at the top and for each sticky note, there's going to be 1 to 3 metrics that represent the performance of that particular sticky note. And so if we go through each one, we go top to bottom. Now what we have is a scorecard that tells a story about how is a client progressing through our growth engine. And so that's how we pick our metrics. Top to bottom is basically, left to right on our growth engine. Same thing with the fulfillment engine. So our sales and marketing team, they have a shared growth scorecard. Our services team, programs team, whatever you call them, they have a fulfillment scorecard, right? So that's what we're looking at. One scorecard per value engine. And we're going to have a metric. Each metric, just like Playbook, is going to have an owner, somebody who's uniquely accountable to that. Each metric, we're going to track week over week, but we're going to have a monthly target. So at the start of every month, we're going to say, where should this metric be? And so we're going to have a target so that there's no revisionist history. Good cannot be subjective. Good needs to be highly objective. And so every Monday, our team comes in, and if you own that metric, it is your job to go, and whether you're going into Google Analytics, you're going into the CRM, or you're going somewhere else, to put in, okay, what is that metric for this week? And we go Monday through Sunday. So they're going to look back over the last week. They're going to fill in that metric. They're going to look at the monthly target, and they're going to say, are we on track, a little bit behind, or are we way, way, way behind? Red, yellow, green. If we're on track or ahead, it's green. If we're behind, but we got a plan for catching up and we believe we can, it's yellow. If we're behind and we don't have a plan and we don't know how to fix it, it's red. And every week we do that. And so for me as a CEO, it's very, very easy. I can look at these scorecards, and if I see yellow, I'm going to ask, what's the plan for getting caught up? And I'm going to ask that of the person who owns the metric. If it's red, we're going to say okay, do we need to call a meeting? Do we need to get some people together to brainstorm how we're going to fix this? Are we just screwed? Do we have a failure of execution, a failure of assumption? But the scorecards must tell a story. They must mirror the customer journey. They need to mirror the growth engine. They need to mirror the fulfillment engine. That's how you know you don't have a vanity metric. They also need to have an owner. They also should be tracked weekly. You're going to have dashboards that track in real time. You need a scorecard that tracks weekly. It's enough time to have some insight. It's not so much time that it's all noise. This is the biggie though, and this one everybody fights me on. Make it manual. Manual scorecards for the win. Everybody says like, oh, don't you realize you could use macros and you could pull this stuff in and even the numbers. You could make it to where if they're 50% or better on the, from the actual to the target, that it could just automate and automatically make it yellow. I don't want that. I want people manually inputting their numbers, because when they manually input the numbers, they know them. Yeah, they know the numbers now. They know them, and they're gonna be like, "Ooh, that seems off." And I can ask anybody on my team, "Hey, what is the conversion rate of that page?" Or, "Hey, how many qualified, how many MQLs have we done this?" And they're gonna know, because every week they're inputting it. Yeah, we get about this much. They know their numbers, and so they know when they're off. There's no surprises. They also, though, when they put them in, when they go, "Oh no, that's bad," they got to think, do I know how to fix it? Because they would much rather mark it as yellow than red. And the difference between yellow and red is, do I have a plan to fix it? Management becomes really, really simple, because you as a leader, your job is to ask the questions and get your team to execute the projects that turn red to yellow and yellow to green. And if you find that you've got somebody in a role who they own a metric, it's always in the red, and they have no idea how to fix it, wrong person in that role. And you're not mean. Say to them, like, I get it. Sometimes you're going to be behind, but to occupy this seat, to own this metric, to be in this role, I need somebody who can turn red to yellow and yellow to green, which means you got to have a plan. If you don't, if you're out of ideas, might have to get somebody new. Management becomes a lot more objective because of manual subjective scorecarding.
Love it. And I think a lot of agencies struggled with this because they've heard they need scorecard metrics, and so they try and put a scorecard metric behind each one of their team members, but it's just a randomly selected thing that isn't useful. And so mapping it to the value engine and that specific step in the process, you can say, okay, what would the scorecard number need to be to know if that's on track or off track? And that's why I love this ecosystem, because it all plays back to the key thing that's moving your business forward.
And you said there is such an important distinction. I want to double click on it. You don't start from the person and say, what metrics do we use to know if you're doing a good job? I know that is what's taught. Everybody needs to have a metric. They will. Okay, they will. They're going to have a metric. But you don't do that, because they're going to give you numbers that they know they can hit that may or may not create value. They may not be value drivers. We don't do that. In the same way, you don't ask somebody, hey, what do you do at this company? No. Start from the value creation process. Say, how do we know this stage is working? Start from the value creation process. Say, who do we need to get this done? We're going to start from the value creation and work backwards. We're not going to start from the person or the department and say, what metrics do you want to be responsible for? Or do you want to report because they make you look good?
So good. Such an important distinction. Guys, if you have follow-up questions on this or anything else Ryan's covered, put them in the chat. We'll try our best to answer these questions. So we talked about the value creation process, kind of shifting to the ongoing management and kind of what you think the ideal meeting rhythm is in an agency, for instance. Like what are your thoughts around company meeting rhythms?
Sure. So I'm not a big fan of setting like these 10-year big, hairy, audacious goals, not for entrepreneurial companies. I mean, come on, y'all. Like, nobody has any freaking clue what they're going to be doing in 10 years, not even the big public companies with floors filled with analysts. If you want to set a big purpose, a big mission, something that you're about, I love that. My suggestion is that it not be constrained by time. Right? So if you want to have a mission or a vision or we just call it a company purpose that you're about, like at the Scalable company, I am all about eradicating entrepreneurial imposter syndrome, right? I'm all about helping more entrepreneurs stay in their business and run their business as long as they want to until they can achieve their ideal exit, not leaving on a bad day, not firing themselves, not getting forced out, right? That's what I'm about. So over what period of time do we want to accomplish this mission or vision? Forever. It's the horizon line. I want to come up with a mission and a vision and a purpose that is so powerful, I can chase it for the rest of my life. It's not time bound. So I think you should have that. So I'm a big believer in missions and visions and purpose, whatever you want to call it, that's so big it's not bound by time, 10, 20 years or anything, 100 year if you want it, right? So we got that. But that's not, you asked about meeting rhythm. So yeah. I'll get to that. When it comes to meeting rhythm, we meet every 3 years at all of our companies to set a 3-year target. So I am a bit, why I don't like 10-year plans and even 5-year plans. We will have a 1-day meeting to say, where do we want to be in terms of revenue, profitability, and total enterprise value 3 years from today? We found that 3 years for entrepreneurial companies really is a sweet spot. It's long enough to do something really impactful, but it's not so long that you can imagine it. And if you think about like, what are private equity groups, and possible acquirers, what are they always looking for? 3 to 5 and 3 to 5, right? They want to triple to 5x a business in 3 to 5 years. Let's take the lower end of that scale. So we're going to pick, like we're going to set a goal. Now this is after, again, we've mapped our operating system, but every 3 years we're going to do that. Now we're going to take that 3-year goal and we're going to break it up into 12 90-day chunks. I don't like annual planning. I don't like it. I think annual planning is the worst. It's like New Year's resolution. Most people have abandoned their annual plan by February, just like most people have abandoned their New Year's resolution by February. So we don't do annual planning. We say, okay, what do we believe that we need to accomplish in the next 90 days to stay on track to our 3-year target? And it's really simple because you can take that 3-year target, break it up into 12 quarters, and you can know if we're going to just increase straight line, what must be true? And we actually have a tool that I give everybody in the book that does all the formula and calculations. So we're going to set, we do quarterly sprint planning. So for that quarter, where do you want to be revenue, profitability, and what are the metrics that we need to move? What are the projects that we need to execute? So 90-day quarterly sprint plans. We then do a weekly planning cadence that's a scorecard meeting. And that's when we're reviewing the scorecard that was put in. And then once a month, we have a monthly business review. We say, how do we do last month? What pivots, if any, do we need to make on our quarterly plan? So 3-year target, 3-year planning, that's usually about a 1-day, a 90-day sprint plan that's anywhere from half a day to a day, a monthly business review that's like 90 minutes. It's an extended kind of scorecard review, and then weekly scorecard reviews. It's 60 minutes to 90 minutes. That's our meeting rhythm.
So none of this wasted energy on meetings that may or not be productive. It's like very specific 90-day sprint, and then everything that you're meeting about is moving towards the accomplishment of those sprints.
Yep.
Which is going to move up into the 3-year target.
Yeah, and if you need to schedule an ad hoc meeting because something's red, you do it. But that's driven by the purpose of this meeting is to figure out how do we take this red metric and make it yellow. So it's no wasted stuff. And people might say, oh, it seems like a lot of meetings. It's really not. It's probably less than you're having right now.
Yeah. So good. So good. Ryan, you've got tons of resources available on this, and I want to make sure nobody misses it because there's only so much we can cover in a 45-minute to an hour-long interview. Ryan, what's the best place for them to learn more about Scalable Company and kind of how they can plug this operating system in their agencies?
Yeah, so getscalable.com/free is where you can get the book. You and I have known each other for long enough. If for some reason you just don't want to spend $20 on a book, you can go to getscalable.com/resources, which is a link inside the book. And that's a way to get the tools and the resources that we're talking about without technically buying the book. I don't have a problem telling you that because I think when you look at the resources, you're going to be like, I should probably have the book so I know how to actually do this stuff. But yeah, it's our goal. I mean, truly, my goal with this book was to just say, here's how to do it. Because like a lot of the agency owners, what our goal is, our business, what we do at the Scalable Company now is we work one-on-one with entrepreneurs to actually help them build out their operating system. So a select number of people who buy the book say, this is amazing. I can do all this and I can figure it all out on my own. And you can. We don't hold anything back, but plenty of people are like, you know what, it might be good to get some help with this. And so that's what we do. It's not in a group setting or anything like that. It's one-on-one, which any agency owners out there who are doing one-on-one, what a pain in the butt it is to build. But we followed our own process. We ate our own dog food in the book. to build out our system and process for getting these operating systems built. So that's our goal. That's what we want to do, is help put more operating systems in more companies.
So good, guys. So go to getscalable.com/free, get the book, or like you said, getscalable.com/resources. You'll be blown away by the resources Ryan and his team have put together. I mean, this is truly a game changer. If you don't go grab that, you've like lost your mind. I know we've only got a couple minutes left, but there's another question I want to ask. And if you have any questions, guys, put them into the comments here, because you've got Ryan live for a couple more minutes. You have an opportunity to potentially get your question answered. But I know you've got some very specific thoughts around compensation plans and incentive plans for growing your team as you grow and as you scale. And one of the challenges we hear from agencies all the time is we hire the account managers or we hire the team and we get them trained up, and before long they're getting offers from bigger companies willing to pay them double what we can afford to pay. Do you have any insights on how to structure compensation plans to keep those people engaged in order to attain the team base a little bit better?
Yeah, I want to reframe this a little bit, because everybody says like the goal should be to hire A players and keep them forever, right? Like that's what we're trying. It's kind of at the core of the question. Like, how do I make sure I only hire A players and that they stay forever? I have a very different approach to this. My goal is not to only hire A players. My goal is to build a company that doesn't require them. And so I would just invite you to consider that if you have an operating system in place, what you should pay your people is fair market rate plus a little bit more. And a little bit more could be 10%, it could be 20%, and deliver an amazing culture and experience so that nobody wants to leave. But the truth is, some of them are they're gonna. And so the idea that like, how do we create such an amazing thing so that our people don't leave? If you build the kind of agency that you want to build, you're going to become a target for poachers. It's going to happen. Like, and when it happens, that means you won. You realize that, right? And so this thing that we say like, oh, I don't want people to poach my talent. That's only going to happen if you fail to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So a necessary outcome of you getting what you want, which is a successful scaled up agency, is your people are going to get poached. So now what? Now what do? Do you overpay everybody beyond market rate so that they stay forever? Well, you can do that, but guess what? You're not going to have a successful agency anymore.
Right. Profitability is going to start to tank. It's
overpay. Yeah, it's going to go through the floor. So no, like that can't be the solution. What is fair market rate? Pay them 10 to 20% more, because you should build enough value and margin within the company that you can sustain that. You're sharing the wealth, and then create an amazing culture. When they still leave, that's okay, because you've got a playbook in place, and you bring in a new person and you say, hey, new person, so happy to have you here. We're going to really miss Johnny. Johnny was great, but we're excited to have you here as well. First thing I want to do is I want to show you, what we do here, how we create and capture marketplace value. This is how clients happen. You're not really touching that part, but I want you to know that works. Now, once a client happens, this is the process they're going through. And if you look at this stage right here, this is the one that I need you to own, right? They're not going to have the context of everything else you say. And guess what? This is the playbook for exactly how to do this work that you do. And here, I want to show you this other thing. This is our scorecard. This metric right here, this is the one that you're going to impact. You see how right now it's yellow? We're doing some things to try to get it into green. Hopefully you being here is going to help with that. And walk them through a training. You support them, you enable them. And what you will find is that when your best people leave, what I found is when good people leave good companies get better. It really is as simple as that. Because when that good person leaves, they leave behind them a foundation. They've up-leveled. They've elevated. And we're so thankful for them that they did that. Really, we are. And we're excited for them about their new opportunity. But they now have left us better than they found us. Thank you. But now somebody new is going to come in with fresh energy, fresh ideas, plus all the foundation that other person created. It's only going to get better. So I don't worry about it. Compensation, pay market, create an amazing culture, but build a company such that good people can leave, and you're going to be even better for it.
I love that. It's such a big paradigm shift for most of us, kind of clinging to that A-player team, and for the people we don't ever want to leave. If you do what Ryan's talking about here, and you dial in the key processes within the business without overthinking it, you don't have to be relying on that team member because somebody else can step in, understand what needs to be done, and hit the ground running. And so you're no longer being held hostage by your A players that want to get paid more and more and more over time. I think that's a great mental reframe, and thanks for sharing that. There's a couple questions here, so I just want to hop in. Victor says, how can we incentivize new clients on referral programs for scaling? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of, I don't ask for referrals. We ask for clients to become reference clients. And so we don't even ask for testimonials initially. So what we'll say is, hey, from time to time, people ask us, prospective clients, people like you who were, a couple years ago or months ago when you didn't know who we were, hey, is there anybody that I can talk to, or can you tell me any stories about anybody? And we'd like to be able to point him towards a reference client who might say nice things about us, assuming you're willing to say something nice. Would you be okay being a reference client? I don't have anybody right now that I would send you, and I promise not to overwhelm your inbox. But if somebody comes along who's in a similar industry, if we send them, would you be willing to say something nice about us? Now, if you ask that question, because it's no obligation today, that's an important distinction. I don't have anybody today. No obligation today. Only about everybody's going to say yes. Now, if they don't, that's instructive. You should ask them why, because maybe you need to do a little bit more work. They're almost all going to be like, yeah, of course, absolutely, 1,000%, totally, amazing. In that case, I would love to get a customer story from you. And there's a tool that we use called testimonial.to. It's not my tool. That's obviously not an affiliate link. But we basically, I got this cool, I would love for you to tell a story, and it asks them some questions, and they read a response into their camera, and it gets a transcript. It gets a video. Most importantly, it gets them consenting to posting the video, which is really, really big.
That little checkbox is important.
Bingo. Now that we know they're willing to be a reference client, little yes. Next yes was, will you give us a testimonial? This is amazing. Is there anybody in your network who you think we should be talking to? Who maybe you'd be willing to, like, if we were to forward this video, they would recognize, your face and your name, and they might be willing to chat with us. So I like asking reference client, customer story, then referral. Just know though, the bulk of your referrals are going to come from your successful clients, not happy ones. Happy ones don't refer, successful ones refer because people ask them how they got to be successful. And so without even having to do anything, they're going to talk about you if you did a good job for them. So if you'll just focus on delivering amazing client outcomes, the referrals are going to come whether you like it or not.
Love that. I think it's a powerful insight there, just to make the soft ask, hey, would you be willing to be a reference client? And now you know kind of where they sit, almost like an NPS survey at some level, and you can move them to, hey, by the way, would you be willing to be a testimonial for us? And then, hey, here's how you can refer us to others. I love that. Victor says, thank you. All right, we're going to do one last question. It's from Colin. Colin says, if you could do only one thing to scale a business, what would it be? What would be the one thing that he has done before that he would never do again? Good question, Colin.
I would never hire a CEO or a COO prior to documenting exactly how we create value. Because every time I've done it, it has failed spectacularly. When you hire, and this honestly is the real. I love EOS. I hate the concept of an integrator the way that it's largely understood.
Let's hand it off. I'm just going to put someone there going to figure it out. I think it's how most people think about it.
Man, here's what we like. We're like, oh, but I'm the visionary. Like you're this like adorable little snowflake that nobody can do what you do. And like, so you bring in somebody to do all the stuff you don't want to do so you can just visionate all over the place? No, that's not business, okay? That's not how business works. And any parents out there, like, that's basically like saying, yeah, I know I had a kid, but I don't actually want to parent the thing. I want to like take them out for like Instagram photo shoots and stuff like that. I don't have to parent, sometimes they poop on themselves and puke on them. Like, I don't want to deal with that. No, that is not parent. You created a business. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get help. Okay. Don't hear me say that. But this idea that like, oh, I'm just going to hire an integrator or a COO or somebody just to run and do all this stuff. No, not as the first step. You've got to have an operating system before you have an operator. And if you hire an operator before you have an operating system, you're either going to wind up having a glorified executive assistant, a $200,000 executive assistant who's waiting for you to tell them what to do because you haven't built the system, or they're going to attempt to build an operating system and it's not going to be what you envisioned. It's going to fail. They're going to get frustrated. If they have any dignity, they're going to quit. Eventually, you're going to fire them. It's going to cost you a small fortune. You're going to be worse off than when you began. And you're going to now ingrain the idea that only you can do this. And it's just not true. Don't do that. Visualize, map. How do you capture and create marketplace value? We got our growth engine. We got our fulfillment engine. Then ask, who is uniquely responsible for this? If it's your name in all the boxes, ask, which sticky notes can I start giving away? Either to the people on my team, or do I need to bring in new people? You build your hiring plan based on giving away the sticky notes that are empty and that have your name on them. Then we can eventually we get somebody to lead the fulfillment side. We get somebody to lead the growth side, whether you call that a head of growth, a head of marketing, a head of sales, a chief revenue officer. We build some functional leadership roles. Then you can hire somebody to run that whole team. And you can step away completely if you want to. But that's how you do it. The biggest mistake that I've made in the past that's cost me literally millions and millions of dollars and almost bankrupted 2 companies, I'm not exaggerating, was hiring an operator before having an operating system. Don't do that.
So good. Colin, turned out to be a great question for us to end on. And really the clarity around, you got to have the operating system before you hire the operator to run with it. And you as the visionary, the CEO, the entrepreneur, it's still your responsibility to set that operating system up and get the right people to run it. And really this process that Ryan has taught and you have available to yourself now will help get you to the place where you understand this, you can implement it, you can get it off the ground, and you've got additional help from Ryan and his team when and if you need it. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for sharing these amazing insights. Once again, go to getscalable.com/free or /resources. Get this book, get your hands on it. Ryan, if you had one last piece of wisdom for that digital marketing agency owner that's trying to get to the next level, what would that be?
You can absolutely fall in love with your business all over again. If you are frustrated with your company and if you're thinking like, man, I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I could go back. I wish I could bail on this other stuff. I would just encourage you, quit on a good day. Okay? Because the good day is coming. If you're frustrated, if you're tired, if you're burned out, it is because you've been successful. It's because you've built your company to a point where it's starting to get bigger than you. And that was the idea all along. Nobody told you that the game has changed. We're telling you now that the game has changed. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not broken. Your business isn't broken. I promise you can do this. Don't let somebody tell you that you need adult supervision. Don't let somebody tell you that you need to go and kowtow to the bankers, the investors. You freaking got this, okay? The magic is there. We got to get it out of your head. We got to upgrade, get an operating system that isn't a UOS. And you'll fall in love with your business all over again. You're going to create something incredibly valuable that's going to serve a lot of clients. So that's what I'd like to leave you with.
So good. Great stuff, Ryan, as always. Thanks so much again for coming. Other than the book, any other way you would want to have people connect with you or reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, twitter.com. I guess it's X now, but /Ryan Deiss. So RyanDeiss. That's actually me and my DMs are open. So if you got any value from this, I'd love to hear about that. It warms my heart. Everywhere else on social is generally my team posting for me. Twitter is the one that I've held back for my own rambling. So
if you want the real Ryan, make sure to get him on X, formerly known as Twitter, and be sure to thank him. Right, he's a wealth of knowledge, and thank him for taking the time to create this scalable company, to share this book, and to be on with us today. So thanks so much, Ryan, and everybody else. Thanks for watching, and we'll see everybody again real soon.